Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but I am back after nearly half a year. For that I owe you an apology, that's for sure. And hopefully I am back with a bang. Maybe not about today's game, you will see that in a second, but overall, because in those 6 months I've played 3 classical tournaments and I would like to share the analysis with you. So hopefully you will find a great time with me for the upcoming month. Therefore, if you are new around here, please make sure to subscribe to not omit any of the videos. And if you are my usual viewer, thank you a lot for staying even though it's been a long time. As you can tell on the screen on your right, there is the schedule that I will try to follow. This is my motivation. Yeah, I hope to publish the analysis, the videos as often as you can tell. Yeah, that's my introduction. That's my apology. Let's get into the games. So guys, to begin with, I would like to cover the games from the Polish First League that happened, as you can tell, in 2025. This is the tournament held usually in September, and it was no different that year. Yeah, few months went by that I apologized for already. I will not do so anymore. And yeah, it's a great tournament. And if you are my viewer for the past year or so, you may remember that we as a club also played in the 2024 edition. And during that one, we were fighting to avoid relegation to the very last round. It was pretty dramatic, let's say. This year, though, it was completely changed environment because we, let's say, freshened up our squad, and other squads, our teams were kind of weakened. Therefore, instead of fighting for avoiding relegation, we actually were the contenders to fight to be advanced to the extra league. So this was pretty new scenario for us, and we will be willing to find out how did we play, right? So yeah, let's go into the analysis of the round number 1, in which I got paired against a little bit lower rated opponent. I was playing on board number 4, so quite low. Last year it was number 2, right? So this is or 3 actually. So yeah, a little bit difference, and it also shows you that our squad was better this year. And yeah, I got white pieces, and in the first move I've played knight f3. And it was not the most ambitious approach, let's say, but the funny thing about that tournament was that it was starting on Saturday morning instead of evening, or I should say afternoon, because even though it was September already and kind of like off season for all the events and parties, there was a wedding scheduled or some big party like that for the evenings. Therefore, our round got rescheduled for the morning part of the Saturday, and we were like during most Friday actually we were traveling to get to the venue because it was quite far from Warsaw. Therefore I was not in my best shape physically, so therefore, you know, this not so ambitious approach. I wanted to just play some calm game with knight f3, b3, g3 kind of setup. So let's see how it went. My opponent replied knight f6, c4, e6, b3. So as you can tell, one fianchetto is on the menu, let's say. And once my opponent tried to do the very same thing, I decided to do the double fianchetto. With this setup, I thought that I will be able to fianchetto both my bishops, and my opponent will be able to do so with only the one bishop. The second one will not be doing that. But to my surprise, after bishop b7, bishop g2, he indeed went with g6. So kind of unusual approach to move the pawns like that. You know, it usually weakens the dark squares. However, with my also unusual, rather not ambitious approach, it should not be the problem. So we continued with the usual stuff: castle, bishop g7, bishop b2, castle. And I believe at that point I have a choice to make, because I need to think of, okay, how am I going to go into the middle game? I have few options, I would say. I can try to play d4 straight away. I can try to simply continue development and not tell my opponent yet how I'm going to set up my pawns and pawn structure, let's say. But in here I chose d3 move, maybe yet again not so ambitiously, but the point was that I wanted to set up somewhat comfortably with knight b2, d2, queen c2, rooks like somewhere in the center, and I knew that the funny line I once played actually, maybe even on this channel, was that I want to maneuver my queen to the long diagonal in order to fight for those dark squares. So I was kind of trying to follow up with that game too. And my opponent played in a similar manner, let's say, so not d5 or c5 trying to grab the center space, but rather d6, knight b to d7, queen e7, and so on. At that point he chose rook a to b8 to make the bishop a little bit better one. And yeah, yet again I have a choice, because I can go actually like a4 or b4 or d4 or e4, or maybe some line I have shown you before. But this line specifically with the queen on the long diagonal works better, especially when this pawn is moved to the d5 square, so that the light squares, the dark squares in the center could be under my full control. But in here it was just a waste of time to move 3 times when my opponent can just simply push e5 at the end of it all and block everything. So yeah, in here I decided to go for the very different route than I thought initially, simply of this rook a to b8 move, because with the queen on e7, c6 square would be an amazing one for my knight, right? Obviously there is still the bishop to defend it, but hence I've played knight d4 trying to exchange those and, you know, free up the c6 square for my knight. My opponent indeed exchanged the bishops and then went quite passively with the queen to e8 square, and I've decided that the c6 square might become quite a nice outpost for myself. So I started with b4 move, and after queen c7 trying to, you know, make the queen work like a bishop on b7, I've played knight c6 anyway, queen b7 pinning my knight, therefore I am unable to take the rook, b5 solidifying the knight, and now rook b to e8. So as you can tell, my opponent within 3 moves transferred the queen towards the queen side instead of staying in the center, which cannot be that great for him. However, the other problem that I have encountered in here is that, yes, sure, I have more space on the queen side, I have kind of a nice outpost here on c6, but I was lacking the idea of like what to do in the near future. And on top of that, knight b8 might be a funny yet scary move, because then what am I going to do about this pinned knight? For that reason I had to do something about the pin itself, and I've played e4 trying to grab some space and close the diagonal, and after knight b8 I just simply exchanged the knights and played knight f3 with the idea that, well, if one knight is exchanged, maybe I will follow up with the other. What's the problem in this position though, is that my opponent quite nicely played knight to d7, and funny thing about this whole position is that once, let's say, I take on g7 and play knight d4 with the idea of jumping to c6, my opponent can play rook b to e8 yet again, and after knight c6, knight b8, so we are kind of getting this perpetuum mobile situation where every piece is exchanged one after the other, and if we had like 4 extra knights on the board each, we would exchange them in fairly similar way. So for that reason, after knight d7 especially, I was thinking for quite some time, should I avoid these exchanges or should I go for them, because perhaps thanks to the space advantage I would be getting some better heavy piece endgame or whatever. So bishop g7 was one move I considered, d4 was the other, a4 too, but in the end also knight d4, but I kind of dislike it because in such a closed position maybe opponent could have just taken on d4 and then play e5 and close the position even more, or basically make any other move whatsoever. And yeah, in the end, actually after like 20-minute thought, I just chose to exchange on g7 and offer a draw. So yeah, as I've said in the very beginning of the video, and this one will not be about a bank itself, about this specific game, because as you can tell, pretty unambitious approach for me, pretty equal game throughout from both players, and I didn't continue and I didn't push through with the initiative. The problem for me was that even though I will show you the evaluation of the computer, it's like plus 0.3, and it was throughout the whole game. After my opponent takes and I try to plant this knight on c6, as I've said, my opponent can just simply try, let's say, e5 move, knight c6, rook b8 with this idea. If I want to play a4, try to, you know, set up some further space advantage or opening the a file. There is a5 possible from the opponent, and en passant is not possible because I will be giving away the knight. And yeah, what can I do more? Like h4, h5, f4, f6. And I thought about this all, and I've said to myself that it would require much more effort from me to win this game. And also c5 outpost for the knight looked quite scary when I have both those pawns on a4, d3. So I said, okay, maybe I will just try to save my strength for the future part of the tournament. And in the terms of how the team do in this match, I thought like, well, we are better team on every board, I believe, so we should win the match, right? However, unfortunately, I didn't push for the win. My other colleagues also did not play that great games, maybe because of this long journey, let's say, and we lost the first match. So our ambitions to get the, get the promotion to the extra league were kind of washed from the very first day. However, obviously mathematically we are still in contention, so we'll see how it went in the future. For today, and that's that. Quite a short analysis to warm myself up before the marathon incoming of the videos on the channel. So yeah, that's that. Thank you all for watching. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye bye.